So you may have heard that thing about Dutch people being very direct and almost unfiltered, which to some people may come off as quite rude or even difficult to come to terms with. But what if I told you that when you live here long enough, you discovered that that cultural trait is just one side of the coin? And I'm going to tell you about the other side and many other things that you may uncover while you live and adjust to the Dutch side of life. And it gets interesting, maybe a little bizarre sometimes. So, you've moved to the Netherlands, you've tackled the paperwork, you've survived the housing crisis, and maybe even picked up a few Dutch words or Dutch phrases. But look a veertje. But just when you think you've settled in, the real culture shocks just start creeping in. The ones that aren't in the travel guides, that's what I mean. I'm talking about the systemic shocks, the things that are so deeply ingrained in Dutch society that they can either make your life easier or leave you completely frustrated. From extreme efficiency that borders on inflexibility to a work-life balance that feels almost unreal, today I'm breaking down 7 things that you should know about adjusting to life in the Netherlands. And stay tuned, I might sneak in a bonus point that took me by surprise too. Probably my favorite one, but let's get into it. The Netherlands runs on efficiency, and I mean engineered clockwork precision efficiency. Everything works until it doesn't. Take public transport as an example. I love it so much because it's so efficient. It's amazing when it works, but one small hiccup, a train delay or a bus missed, can derail your entire day because the delay times will just compound with every stop you get to because of that one. 5 minutes, just 5 minutes can cost you 30 minutes to an hour or even more. Whereas in Ghana, although it can be quite chaotic sometimes, you can almost always jump in the next Trotsky, or if you dare, you can hop on Kada and get to your appointment on time. Not here. And it's not just transport. If you don't book an appointment weeks in advance, whether for the doctor, the government office, or even some restaurants, then you're out of luck. The system here is built for people who plan ahead, not for people who need flexibility. I remember walking out of a barber shop after waiting an infuriatingly long time, only for this guy who walked in minutes after I did just waltz into the seat because it was his turn and he had booked an appointment and I didn't know. And that includes things that feel like it shouldn't need such structure, like booking coffee dates or trying to see your friends weeks ahead of time. The advantage I would say, or I'll admit, is that there is a lot more thought that goes into making things work as opposed to the spontaneity that sometimes falls through without any feeling of guilt. You can plan trips with your friends and it never happens for months on end. So I think this is better in that way. The Dutch are known for being blunt, brutally honest, and straight to the point. There's no sugarcoating, no unnecessary small talk, just raw efficiency in communication. If your work isn't good, you'll be told without a filter. If you ask for feedback, expect no fluff. And if you're used to cultures where criticism is softened with politeness, the Dutch way can feel borderline rude. But here's the thing, it's not personal, it's just how society functions. Once you get used to it, you might even start appreciating how clear and honest everything is. However, there's also the ignorant curiosity about certain topics or personal questions that are quite invasive, stereotypical, or prejudiced. But the person asking it does so under the guise of not knowing and not wanting to offend. But it does happen. Like a toddler, when a toddler asks extremely unfiltered things that makes one uncomfortable. Every so often you get this, "Oh, you speak very well, where are you from?" That most people are unaware of how prejudiced they sound. The other side of this coin that I hinted at the beginning of this video is that over time I've realized that the Dutch directness is almost only acceptable when it's either one-sided or from a familiar source. They like to do the dishing out of the directness but are not so good with receiving it, which I found both odd and amusing because you would think that if you appreciate directness, you should be able to have it the other way around. But no, not so much. If you're not their friend, yeah, don't criticize a Dutch person. They don't like it. Coming from a country where hustle culture is the norm, the Dutch work-life balance feels like a dream, sometimes almost too good to be true. Part-time work is absolutely normal. People choose to work fewer hours just to have time for themselves. Most organizations give employees that choice. Most organizations. My favorite one is no one glorifies overworking. Suffering, no. Staying at work late isn't seen as commitment. It's seen as a sign of poor time management. You know how in Ghana people like to pay eye service? Like seen to be working. If you leave early, your colleagues will be giving you the side eye. In fact, promotions can even pass you by, but not here. People don't glorify suffering, please. Which means also that vacations are sacred In the Netherlands, if you don't take your holidays, your boss will probably force you to. Plus, there's only so little time in a year where you have good weather, so you must make the most of it. And one thing I like is how present they are in the moment when such activities happen, right? When they take a holiday, they are gone for the holiday. It's a system that values time off as much as it values productivity. And honestly, me personally, I like that a lot. And now to my little bonus. It's a bonus because it's actually quite popular, but I still can't get over it. I'm sure you've seen a joke or two about it on Instagram or TikTok somewhere. Dutch people have a few favorite words like gratis, korting, sale, They will not pass up the chance to get the best deal on anything. Frugality is everything. Historically, before slavery and colonization, the Dutch were known for their trading. So if you mix the love of trade and money with efficiency, you get a society that counts almost every cent. I would say that they are like the cool people of Europe. And here's where it gets a little funny for most newcomers. In most parts of the world, when you get invited for an intimate event like a birthday, no one would think that you need to come prepared because you have to foot your own bill. When the host is feeling generous, they may take care of the first round of drinks and a few bites, and that's it. Dutch birthdays should be a video on its own, but I digress. Yeah, when you go out with your Dutch friends, there will be absolutely no hard feelings about sending you what is called a tikkie for your share of whatever the final bill is if it's one person that paid at a table. It's so ingrained in the culture that the term 50-50 in these instances is what you called going Dutch. In fact, there's this program I love watching on weekday evenings called First Dates, and I discovered that the participants, first of all, they pay for their own dates, and secondly, sometimes they have to split, or they want to split.
Splitten dan splitten.
And I've heard some absolutely bizarre stories about the severity of these cases that throw foreigners, that someone was sent a tikkie for the tea they were served in someone's house, and even a tikkie for finishing someone's leftover like croissant on the table. And I must say that, I saw these things on Instagram and TikTok, so they may have been exaggerated, let me just say that. Personally, I think this culture of everyone takes care of themselves without the remorse is kind of good, because there are those people who almost always conveniently can't find their wallets when it's time to pay. If you need help with something in the Netherlands, be prepared to help yourself first. Whether it's filling out tax forms, finding the right train, or understanding government websites, the Dutch assume you figure it out. Back home, if you don't know something, people will go out of their way to assist you. And I personally prefer this culture because I find it easier, or probably because I find it easier to help someone who has done some work prior, help themselves a little before they reach out to me when they've hit a dead end. And even in my work, especially with voiceovers, I've posted so much short form tutorials or tutorial content out there. Yet you have people sending you messages about teaching them things you've already shared. Knowledge that is already on the page, just because they chose not to browse and look for themselves. In many places, systems are guidelines, things you can sometimes work around. In the Netherlands, systems are the law. If the rule says that no registration without a permanent address, then you are not getting the BSN number. No exceptions. If your papers are missing one tiny document, expect delays that can last months. Rules are applied quite strictly here, and even if the rule itself doesn't make sense in your situation, it doesn't matter. The rules here don't give a wider girth to accommodate situations which might be deemed peculiar for some reason, like our transition here and how we looked unattractive on paper because we had lived abroad for the longest time. And the housing corporations, for example, how nothing would move forward smoothly until I got the BSN and registered at a municipality, and how all this ties to me being able to work or register myself as a freelancer or an entrepreneur. There's very little room for negotiations. If you like structure, you will love it. If you are used to finding a way when systems fail you, then please prepare for some frustration. My partner is a Dutch citizen, and that was a huge advantage to our being able to navigate the hurdles, but even that took us a few months to get things moving. Imagine doing this as a non-Dutch speaking or reading foreigner who is here for the first time. Coming from Ghana, where if you were to start a conversation with someone, it wouldn't have to come from such a difficult place or take so much effort to do. And I'm saying this to give the context this way because even though there's a stark difference, I'm not saying that In Ghana, people go about just speaking to strangers as if it's the norm, but it's not awkward when it happens. And that's what I mean. However, here in the Netherlands, the silence in public spaces can feel, eerie, maybe unwelcoming. On the train, silence. In the elevator, no small talk. Grocery store, minimal conversation. It's just that unnecessary conversation isn't part of the culture. If you love random social interactions, then this can be a huge adjustment for you. In Ghana, you sit in a loading taxi or a public transportation, and small talk is literally the fuel or part of the fuel that moves or makes the journey shorter. So a sharp turn into this isolated bubble can feel very jarring. And even worse, when you're in a train or a bus, you have to go somewhere, you forgot your headphones. Yeah, it can be difficult. The Netherlands is efficient, but bureaucracy is still bureaucracy. Let's just be fair here. Getting official documents, permits, or approvals can take weeks to months. And because everything is done strictly by the book, even the smallest mistake can take you back. And I would say that patience is the key to dealing with Dutch bureaucracy, because the truth is, there are no shortcuts. Someone I know here went through a gruesome few months trying to renew his residence permits. Although he used the services of an immigration lawyer and did everything by the book, the final decision kept getting postponed, which meant that for someone who had his life going just fine prior to the expiration of his residence permit, was now hanging in limbo. He can neither go nor come, and there was no official specific reason communicated to him for this. However, I must say that this bureaucratic efficiency feels rather good when you are within the safety of the law or having everything right. When you compare it to how easy some processes become just because you have the right documents, versus in Ghana where you have the Ghana card, you have the voter's ID, you have the passport, driver's license, and all of these things have different codes and different offices will choose to take this one or not take the other one. Yeah, it can be frustrating. Adjusting to life in the Netherlands is about understanding the deeper cultural mindsets. Yes, the country is organized, is safe, is well structured, but it also requires a certain level of adaptation to its directness or efficiency and strict systems. If you're planning to move here or have just arrived, these are the things that no one, or probably you didn't get warned about before coming, or you have to experience for yourself. Let me know in the comments which of these shocked you the most. And if you're already living in the Netherlands, what was your biggest adjustment if you are a foreigner? Don't forget to like. That's all I want or I need for the algorithm. If you found this helpful, and see you in the next video.